appalling. My client was convicted and still stands convicted on 2 counts of perjury and obstruction of justice for testifying about his personal understanding of a telephone call he was not even on after Mr. Weissman in the grand jury told him to share his personal understanding of that phone call, whether it was accurate or not.
Well, this is interesting. Isn't that sort of the way they want to catch the President of the United States?
Exactly.
And yet, how many years ago was this?
This was 16, 18 years ago.
And this connection between Mueller and Weissman, 2 decades.
At least 2 decades.
Does he treat him almost like a like a son? He seems to bring Weissman with him wherever he goes, including as director of the FBI.
He did. He has been promoting and protecting Mr. Weissman for at least 2 decades.
And he's appointed special counsel, and his immediate first choice is Andrew Weissman to be his top lieutenant.
That's right.
I want to get into the treatment of the president by Mueller, Weissman, and team, but first I want to talk about Manafort. Last time I heard he was in solitary confinement in a federal prison.
Yes, he is.
Same treatment as the Merrill Lynch gentleman. Now, he was convicted by a jury in Virginia on multiple counts. Now they're back in D.C. trying to get more counts piled on. There have been reports that Manafort's depressed, that he's pretty broken. This is par for the course, isn't it? You know, you have a prosecution, you have conviction, and you move on to your next case. You were involved in a lot of cases.
Yes.
As an assistant U.S. attorney for 9 different U.S. attorneys. This is different, though. This is really like a blood sport for Mr. Weissman, isn't it?
Oh, it definitely is, yes.
And so they're dragging him back into Washington, D.C. in front of an Obama judge, Mr. Chief Justice, and yes, it does make a difference. In front of an Obama judge who's very receptive, apparently, to the special counsel's arguments, and has been repeatedly.
Oh, yes, she's the one that remanded Mr. Manafort to custody immediately upon their request and is allowing them to pile on the additional charges.
And when you look at the case involving Anderson and Merrill Lynch, these 4 executives, and on Manafort, like I say, it's almost as if it's not that they have more to offer. It's that there's almost an obsession, an odd desire to destroy these people, not just punish them, but to break them into 1,000 pieces.
That's exactly what it is. And Mr. Weissman did the same thing to another person not ascribed and licensed to lie, and that was young Enron treasurer Ben Glisson, who wanted to just plead guilty to a crime that he admitted he committed in one of Fastow's schemes and then reported to prison to serve his time. Mr. Weissman wanted him to cooperate and testify against other people. Well, Glisson just wanted to do his time and be done with it. So what happened when this young man, 30-something years old, reported to prison? He found himself immediately put into solitary confinement, which is a cell barely large enough to stand up in with a slit for light. You're caged like an animal for 23 hours a day. And he was completely broken. They left him there for almost 2 weeks and then put him in the general prison population. Solitary will drive a sane man insane within 24 hours.
I want to talk about this, and I want to bring in the fact that this gentleman, Weissman, so-called gentleman, is really the invisible hand that is pushing the effort against the President of the United States, in my view. We'll be right back. Sidney Powell, President of the United States, I think he was set up from day one, before he was President of the United States.
Oh, I agree.
Even as a candidate, they were focused on him. I think the evidence is abundantly clear, and I don't much care what the Mueller report has to say. There needs to be another report on what took place when President Trump was candidate Trump, when President Trump was President-elect Trump, and then shortly after he became President Trump. There is a stream of factual information that the media essentially reject. But facts are facts that demonstrate that the Obama administration at the highest levels, at the FBI. We haven't even gotten into the intelligence agencies unmasking individuals like Lieutenant General Flynn. We had a rush to unmask individuals in the last year of the Obama administration like we've never seen before in American history. People have not been pursued in that regard. We had the Hillary Clinton campaign. Earlier this week, there was information that 5 or 6 surrogates of the Clinton campaign were pushing this dossier into the FBI, and among others, Baker, the general counsel, who's now out and under criminal investigation, got a copy. Others also received copies of it because it turns out the Clinton campaign and the DNC, through their straw men and all the rest, they funded this operation, they funded the opposition research, and they pushed it into the FBI, into a friendly senior level of the FBI run by the Obama administration and the Loretta Lynch Justice Department. Now, Mr. Weissman, it turns out, based on this earlier reporting by John Solomon this week, was among several who were told by Bruce Orr, for America, he served on the staff of the Deputy Attorney General, very senior position. I had the position once. The Deputy Attorney General was an Obama holdover at some point. She became the Attorney General, Sally Yates, extremely partisan and a friend of Andrew Weissman's, as a matter of fact. And Weissman, before he goes into the special counsel, is one of the individuals who Bruce Orr tells, according to his testimony to Congress in closed session, this dossier, look, my wife works for Fusion GPS, which, secured the dossier, and just be careful about it, because it is involved in opposition research, and there are political aspects to it. So they developed this application that they filed with the FISA court. They put a tiny little footnote in there, which nobody read, including the federal judge who sits there as a FISA court judge, rather than explaining what this dossier is, because they want to ultimately investigate the man who becomes president of the United States, Donald Trump. Not Carter Page, not Manafort. They want Trump. And they get their FISA warrant. And they get it extended 3 times. Not once are these judges told about this really poisonous fruit, this dossier and the facts surrounding it. So I have 2 questions for you in the lead up here. Mr. Weissman, how in the world can he be on the special counsel's staff, really the man behind the man, when he knew from day one about that dossier? And then number 2, where are these federal judges? You and I practice law in federal court from time to time. A federal judge learns that false or misleading information was presented to him or her, and on that basis they sign off on a warrant. I can tell you the federal judges I practice, one in particular, Royce Lamberth, he would have dragged my butt back into court, he would have had an evidentiary hearing, and he would have held me in contempt. Where are these judges? So first of all, how does Weissman get away with this? I guess because Mueller wants him to. And secondly, why are these federal judges, now that they know the truth, it's all out in the media, why are they sitting silently?
Well, Weissman has been doing this for at least 20 years, and Bob Mueller knows it. That's what he brought him on the task force to do, or the special counsel. So you think Bob Mueller wants this guy? He has to.
He picked him.
He handpicked him.
In fact, he's advanced his career over the years.
He has totally advanced his career over the years, and he's protected him. And I know that because Bill Hodes and I filed a grievance against Andrew Weissman while he was Deputy Director General Counsel of the FBI under Mr. Mueller.
What happened there?
Well, ironically enough, the Department of Justice was defending him against the grievance. We filed it with the New York Bar, and unbeknownst to us, the New York Bar punted it to the Department of Justice Office of Professional Responsibility to decide it, while the Department of Justice was defending Mr. Weissman on it. And all of a sudden we get a letter from OPR, of course, finding absolutely nothing wrong, even though Mr. Weissman and his team had yellow highlighted evidence that they knew before the trial was favorable to the Merrill Lynch defendants, completely favorable to them, the exact language we needed to defend them before the trial that exonerated them completely.
So he skates
and
on
they
the edge.
hit it.
He skates on the edge. And he just seems to get away with it.
Oh, it wasn't even on the edge. The Fifth Circuit, in our motion for new trial appeal, found that the prosecutors plainly suppressed evidence favorable to the defense. They just bailed out the government by holding it wasn't material.
So you have this Fifth Circuit court ruling, material or not, that shows really sketchy conduct. You have the Supreme Court reversal. You have this man who's told that the dossier really is tainted. He winds up in the special counsel's office. You have these judges who don't plan to do a damn thing about any of it on the FISA court. Now you have them teeing up the President of the United States, and they say, we want to interview the President of the United States. It's no big deal. We just want to know his opinion about why he fired James Comey. We just want to know his opinion about Lieutenant General Mike Flynn. When we come back, I want you to explain to us why that's a problem. We'll be right back. So Sidney Powell, prosecutor's office, special counsel, says, look, we just want to interview the president. We want to know his view on Mr. Comey. We want to know, really why what was his opinion of Mr. Comey? What was his opinion of the Russian investigator? What was his opinion of Mr. Flynn? And the media's out there, if he has nothing to hide, what's the problem? Isn't the problem what you just told us that your own client faced? And explain that.
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, neither Mr. Mueller nor Andrew Weissman are interested in the truth whatsoever. They're only interested in whatever they can generate to create a criminal offense against whoever they want to target. And they will do that by any means they can manufacture. Any means they can manufacture. So
why are these questions, why do they ring a bell to you?
Because, for example, my client still stands convicted.
Merrill Lynch executive.
A Merrill Lynch executive of perjury and obstruction of justice, two separate offenses, for expressing his personal understanding of a telephone call he did not even participate in after Mr. Weissman instructed him in front of the grand jury to share that personal understanding with the grand jury, whether it was accurate or not. Well, if it doesn't even have to be accurate, how in the world can it be perjury? And how can your personal understanding of something be perjury? It makes no sense whatsoever. But he has 2 felony convictions based on that. And we couldn't get it reversed. Thanks to Mr. Weissman.
And you couldn't get it reversed. And Mr. Weissman knows that.
Yes.
And Mr. Weissman takes his whole page from his playbook, says, look at this, I got the President of the United States. We just want to ask the President of the United States, what is your personal opinion about the way that Comey and why you removed him? And they find some contradictory piece of information or something he may have said elsewhere. Even though a president cannot be held for obstruction of justice and firing a subordinate, which I have stated from day one, which others have stated from day one, which is abundantly clear, but they're not going to charge the president. They're going to write a report. And they're going to be able to write a one-sided report. And this is what I wanted to ask you. Prosecutors don't write reports. No. Prosecutors speak in the courtroom, or they keep their mouths shut.
Right.
So we have a special counsel who's going to write a report. Okay, the report is supposed to be a confidential report just for the higher-ups at the Department of Justice. But, of course, Congress is going to demand it. The press is going to demand it. Somebody will likely leak it. So here we're going to have a document by the likes of Mr. Weissman, who will oversee it with his boss, Mr. Mueller. Given your experience with Mr. Weissman, do you expect this report to be a fair report that lays out, the different responses? Or do you expect this report to be the sort of thing that Mr. Weissman is known to do in the courtroom, at sentencing hearings, kind of withholding certain kinds of information, underscoring certain kinds of information. What do you expect from this report?
Mr. Weissman could write a report that would make you're giving your mother a nice Christmas present sound like a federal criminal offense.
So your own experience with this fella and his record, and he's going to be writing the report. And isn't that why Pelosi and the other Democrats and the media say, let's wait for